He's one of the most legendary names in music history, a songwriter whose melodies have defined generations. This is the story of Sir Paul McCartney, from Liverpool lad to global icon. Paul McCartney was born on June 18, 1942 at Walton Hospital in Liverpool. His father, James, worked at the Liverpool Cotton Exchange by day, and by night he led Jim Mack's jazz band, filling the McCartney home with music. The family often gathered around the piano, and this early experience would inspire Paul years later to write When I'm 64. His mother Mary was a dedicated midwife. Paul grew up in a close-knit working-class family, surrounded by visiting relatives and strong traditions. He started school in Stockton Wood Road Primary, and then moved on to Joseph Williams Junior School and passed his 11 plus in 1953, earning a place at the Liverpool Institute. It was on that bus to school that Paul met a boy named George Harrison. Tragedy struck in October of 1956 when Paul was just 14. His mother Mary died of breast cancer. Her death had a profound impact on him and would later inspire the touching ballad Let It Be. To comfort him, Paul's dad gave him a trumpet, but as the skiffle craze swept the country, Paul traded it for a £15 acoustic guitar. Being left-handed, he struggled at first, but he soon taught himself to restring it and wrote his very first song, I Lost My Little Girl. He took music lessons for a while, but preferred to learn by ear. He also started playing piano and, while still living at 4 Flynn Road, wrote an early version of When I'm 64. Just weeks after his 15th birthday, Paul's friend Ivan invited him to a local skiffle band called the Quarrymen, led by another young Liverpoolian named John Lennon. After Stewart left the band, Paul reluctantly picked up the bass. He later bought a left-handed Hofner bass, a move that would become part of the Beatles' visual identity. As Beatlemania took off, the band relocated from Liverpool to London. While the others eventually moved out the city, Paul stayed in central London, soaking up the capital's artistic and cultural scene. By the mid-60s, Paul had begun experimenting with avant-garde music and tape loops. In 1966, he composed the score for the film The Family Way, becoming the first Beatle to take on a solo music project. The score would go on to win an Ivor Novello Award. That same year, the Beatles stopped touring. Paul initially resisted the decision, but went along with it eventually. When their manager Brian Epstein died in 1967, Paul took the reins to keep the group going, spearheading Magical Mystery Tour and later trying to push the band back onto the stage, but tensions were growing. John Lennon dismissed Paul's ideas, and by 1969 the cracks were deep. Paul McCartney married photographer Linda Eastman on March 12 of 1969, and just a week later the Beatles performed their final live set, the legendary rooftop concert at Apple Corps. Paul was a key force behind their final album, Abbey Road, but he clashed with the producer Phil Spector over Let It Be, and with the rest of the band over their new manager Alan Clean. Paul had wanted Linda's father, Lee Eastman, to take on the role. Despite John privately leaving the group in 1969, it was Paul who publicly announced the Beatles split on April 10th of 1970, during the release of his debut solo album. The Beatles' partnership was officially dissolved later that year, following a lawsuit Paul filed to protect his music. In 1971, Paul formed Wings. The band toured heavily and in 1977 released Mull of Kintyre, which became the UK's highest-selling single until 1984. By the mid-70s, Paul felt ready to play Beatles songs again, ending years of avoiding them. In the 1980s, he collaborated with Elvis Costello, and in 1991 ventured into classical music with the Liverpool Oratorio. The murder of John Lennon in December of 1980 shocked the world, and when asked how he felt, Paul said it was a drag, a comment he later regretted deeply. Privately, he'd cried all night upon hearing the news. Paul retired from live shows for a while, but returned stronger with a series of global tours. Wings disbanded in 1981, but that same year, Paul reunited with George and Ringo to record All Those Years Ago, a tribute to John. In the 1990s, the surviving Beatles worked on the Anthology project, adding vocals and instruments to 2 of Lennon's demos, Free as a Bird and Real Love. Today, Paul McCartney remains as active as ever. He's currently touring the world, showcasing a new photography expedition and preparing to release a book about his time in the Wings. In 2024, he won a Grammy for the AI-assisted Beatles track, Now and Then. It's a haunting and beautiful reminder of his legacy. He's married to Nancy Chevelle and continues to perform at massive venues, including headlining festivals like Glastonbury. From Liverpool to legend, Paul McCartney's journey has shaped the soundtrack of the modern world, and he's still making music that connects to generations. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this look at Paul McCartney's life, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop your favourite Paul moment in the comments below. Until next time.